Hey, what's up everybody, and welcome back to News Dose. And even though E3 is technically over, well, it doesn't look like Nintendo and Xbox are quite aware of this because they still have some things happening throughout the week. On one side, you have Nintendo with this massive Nintendo Switch sale, which we'll talk about here in just a second. But then you also have Xbox, which I guess, that hour and 30-minute showcase that they had just a few days back wasn't enough. Yeah, it's scary how much games they have in development right now, and apparently we're going to get more information on some of those games, or at least what some of their studios are up to real soon, and we'll talk all about that today. Before that, though, let's actually take a look at some of those Nintendo games that you can get for a pretty nice discount right now over on their eShop. So all of these games are available over on the Nintendo eShop, and you can save up to 50% off on select digital games, software bundles, and even DLC. And yeah, let's just go ahead and check this out because, again, this is a pretty massive Nintendo Switch eShop sale. And yeah, so you can get The Legends of Zelda Breath of the Wild for $41.99, or, technically $42. You can get Fire Emblem Three Houses at $42, Paper Mario The Origami King at $42, and you can just kind of see me scroll down here and see all the different games that you can get for pretty nice discounts. And that's really the thing about this. Nintendo doesn't often slash the prices on their first-party games, and right away you can see 5 different first-party games that you can get for around $42, and then with Mario and Rabbids, you can get that for $10, which is such a steal for a game like this. Now, you've probably noticed some excitement for the Mario plus Rabbids sequel that's coming out sometime in 2022, and if you haven't played the original, which I highly recommend, right now is definitely the time to check it out because it's only $10 as of this moment. Again, this is such a steal, and this really is one of the best Mario spin-offs to ever be made. But really, those 5 games are just the tip of the iceberg of what you can find over at the Nintendo eShop right now. And this includes things like Octopath Traveler, Pikmin 3 Deluxe is on sale. You have Immortals Phoenix Rising, Cuphead. There's The Last Campfire, which is kind of a hidden gem. I definitely recommend that one. It's only $7.49 right now. You have Dead Cells, great independent game. There's Divinity Original Sin 2. You have Okami HD, which is $10. I mean, if you like Zelda games, then Okami HD is a great game to pick up. And then one of my favorites is actually Crash Bandicoot 4 at $30. Now, I've said this several times on the channel, but I believe Crash Bandicoot 4 is one of the best completely new 3D platformers to release within the last decade. It is a phenomenal 3D platformer, and if you like the old Crash games, it is the perfect sequel. Absolutely check that game out if you haven't already, and you can pick it up for $30 until June 21st over on the Nintendo Switch eShop. But yeah, if you have the Nintendo Switch, I'd highly recommend checking the eShop right now because there's just a lot of good games that you can get for a pretty good price. Now, speaking of Nintendo, they obviously had a pretty good Nintendo Direct for their E3 event yesterday. I thought they had some really exciting games to show, and definitely a few surprises with games like Warioware Bring It Together, and then you had Advance Wars Reboot Camp. Both of those were definitely surprising, but very exciting games to announce for their E3 event. Now, we did get some new details on these games, both in terms of pricing, which I think is a little questionable, and then you got some new information as far as features are concerned with Advance Wars Reboot Camp. We'll actually talk about that new feature because this is actually pretty exciting stuff. So, Advance Wars Reboot Camp will have online multiplayer play, and that's actually very cool to see. This is a tactical RPG, and it has a lot of potential to be a pretty good multiplayer game, so I'm really glad to see that this will have online play, and definitely a welcome addition. But this is where things do get a little bit more dicey. If you were trying to pre-order either one of these games yesterday, you probably already know this, but Advance Wars Reboot Camp was set to $60. And even though it does have online play this time, I know that that's going to be a little questionable for some fans, especially if you never played the original games. Now, I'm just going to go ahead and point out, like I said yesterday, Advance Wars is widely considered to be one of the best games that was ever made for the Game Boy Advance. So these are really high quality games, and that's something to keep in mind. Price is always going to be subjective, but at the same time, I feel like Nintendo pricing this at $60 is a bit of a disservice to a game like this. Now, you can say the same thing about Warioware, which is set at $50, but in both situations, I think that might be quite a hard sell for newcomers to jump into these franchises. Again, both of these are great franchises, and in terms of quality, they're fantastic games, but I feel like it would have been a little bit easier for them to sell these games, which are some of their lesser-known IPs, at around $40. Now, if we just rewind for a minute, just a couple months ago, fans were pretty angry about Zelda Skyward Sword HD being set at $60. And the thing about that is, that's at least Zelda. Zelda's, of course, going to sell, but when you have games like WarioWare and Advance Wars, I feel like $40 would have probably been better for their long-term success. Maybe I'm wrong here, though. Switch games tend to sell extremely well, so maybe a lot of new people will jump into these franchises for the first time ever, and these games will just explode in terms of total units sold. So I guess we'll see what happens with both of these games, but let me know in the comments below on what you think about the prices for both of these games, and also about that online feature for Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. Moving on, though, we need to talk about Xbox because they have a few things happening after their E3 Xbox showcase concluded, and this is actually really exciting. So first up, we actually have 40 new demos that dropped on Xbox just yesterday, and this includes some highly anticipated independent games that you might want to go check out. All of these demos will be available until June 21st, and that includes the highly anticipated Tunic. We've been waiting for that game for years and years. And then also Sable, which just looks striking in terms of its visuals. Of course, though, there are plenty of other games that you can check out as well, including Button City, there's Cat Lateral, Clone Drones, Clousy, Death Trash, Dreamers, Echo Generation, Fractal Space, and a ton more. I will have a full list in the description below, but yeah, if you want to check out some new demos before they go away on June 21st, go check that out over on Xbox. But here's what a lot of you all might really be excited about, and that's that Xbox has an extended showcase happening tomorrow. Apparently that big Xbox showcase that was roughly an hour and a half long isn't quite enough to show everything that they have in development. And okay, that makes sense because Xbox has 23 total studios now, and they have a lot of games in development. But at this particular event, what they're actually doing is they're going to be having conversations with some different Xbox game studios. So don't go into this event expecting some gameplay demos or anything like that, but we could get some new details for some anticipated games that we didn't see at E3, and I think that alone is worth tuning in for. There's quite a few Xbox games that did not show up at E3 that fans are certainly excited for. That includes games like Hellblade 2, Fable, Avowed, you have Everwild, and quite a few more, so maybe we get some details about some of those games at this event. Now, I'm not saying any of these games will be here at this event, but at least one of them was confirmed, and that was Ninja Theory's Hellblade 2. They did confirm over on Twitter to tune in tomorrow for a behind-the-scenes update on the development of Senua's Saga Hellblade 2, and I think that alone is worth tuning in for. Honestly, I think Hellblade was one of the best story-driven games that released last generation, and I'm very excited for Hellblade 2. So to hear that Ninja Theory will be at this event tomorrow to give some kind of update on Hellblade 2, yeah, I think that alone is worth tuning in for this event. But beyond just Ninja Theory, there's been several other Xbox studios to be confirmed to be at this event. We don't know what they're talking about just yet, but 343 Industries, Double Fine, Obsidian Entertainment, Playground Games, Rare, World's Edge, and then apparently talented development partners will be there. I imagine one of those partners will probably be Avalanche as they're working on Contraband, but I guess we'll see about all that. But either way, if you're interested in these studios and the conversations that they're going to have at this event, it will take place tomorrow on June 17th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time. I know I'm certainly going to watch it for, at the very least, that Hellblade 2 update. Just don't go in expecting any kind of new gameplay demos or anything like that, but I think we could come away with some new details, and if that's something you're interested in, definitely tune in for this event. Next up though, let's talk about PlayStation, as we have a few different topics here actually. Now, it was just a week or so ago that we talked about the Medium possibly heading over to the PlayStation 5. It was recently rated on ESRB, and a lot of the times when that happens, an announcement does follow shortly after, and in this case, that's exactly what happened. The Medium has officially been announced for the PlayStation 5 and will launch on September 3rd. So you're not going to have to wait too long for this one, and this is actually a game you might want to check out. Now, this game has been an Xbox Series exclusive up to this point, and actually a very good one at that. It launched directly in the Xbox Game Pass back in January, and it's probably one of my favorite games that's released so far this year. It's not really the most action-packed game in the world, and it's actually kind of more like a walking simulator than anything else, but it has a very good story, the villains are well made, and it's just got a great atmosphere. So if any of those things do interest you, I would highly recommend the Medium. And you know what? This is just good news for everybody. PlayStation fans, you're going to get a good game out of this. But something else that really excites me about this is that if this game ends up being successful enough, we might get a sequel. Now, if you played this game, you probably know how it ended, and I'm not going to go into spoiler territory, but this game is a very obvious choice to have a sequel, so I'm hoping it has a lot of success. But yeah, again, the Medium will release on September 3rd on the PlayStation 5. Definitely pick that game up if you haven't played it already. Now, one other interesting thing that's happening with PlayStation, we're just going to talk about this real brief, is the PlayStation VR 2.0. Now, if you're somebody like me who likes VR, then you're probably keeping an eye on PlayStation VR 2. I personally believe that PlayStation is one of the best VR studios as of this moment. They don't get that wide recognition from gamers because VR is a bit of a niche product as of this moment, but they really do a good job with their VR games. I think Blood and Truth and then Astrobot in specific are some of the best VR games to date, not just for PlayStation, but also on PC as well. I really believe that these games are absolutely fantastic, so I'm interested to see what they can do with PSVR 2.0. Now, we know the PlayStation VR 2.0 exists and everything, and we've even seen the controllers, but there's still a lot of questions that remains when it comes to this device. And one of those, of course, is the release date. Well, according to Bloomberg, their sources reportedly are saying that this device will release holiday of 2022. And okay, I think that's actually very fitting, but at the same time, I think it's important to note that this is still just a rumor. One thing that we have seen with Bloomberg here recently is that they're not always right. They reportedly also said the Switch Pro was going to be announced before E3, and yeah, that didn't exactly happen, so you have to take this with a grain of salt. But if they are indeed correct, then we should expect PlayStation VR 2.0 to release next year on holiday of 2022 with OLED panels made by Samsung. Now, the original PlayStation VR also had OLED panels, so I don't really think it'd be too surprising to see PlayStation VR 2.0 also have OLED panels. But really, I am excited to see PlayStation VR 2.0, so I'm hoping we get some official news from Sony sooner rather than later. Let's move on over to the poll of the day, though, and we're actually going to be talking about that Nintendo E3 Direct, because I asked you all, what letter grade would you give the Nintendo E3 Direct? And for the most part, it seems like you all were pretty satisfied with the Nintendo E3 Direct, with 47% of you giving it a B overall, 12% of you gave it an A, and 29% of you gave it a C. I'm a little surprised by that one because I did think this was a really good conference, though I guess it depends on what type of games you like. They didn't really announce a new game in their flagship franchises being Mario or Zelda, so I could see that disappointing people. But for those who like Metroid or the Game Boy Advance, I thought this was a phenomenal Nintendo E3 Direct. They had plenty of surprises with games like Advance Wars, Warioware, and then you had Mario Party Superstars alongside, of course, Metroid Dread. Super excited for that one. And then, of course, you had third-party games there such as Shin Megami Tensei, as well as Danganronpa Decadence. So I think there was a lot of good games here, though I will say that I would have liked to have seen something a little bit more with Zelda's 35th anniversary. There has been those ongoing rumors of Zelda Twilight Princess and then Wind Waker coming over to the Switch, but those were not announced here. I was kind of hopeful for that, but regardless, I still thought there was a lot of good games that were shown here, and I just think it was just an overall really good event. I mean, we finally got a new 2D Metroid, the first new 2D Metroid in nearly 2 decades. Us Metroid fans have something to be excited for. So I think for that alone, I'm really happy with this event. I'd probably give it an A- or possibly a B+. And I think I can also honestly say that I was happy with this year's E3. I genuinely believe that there was a lot of good games revealed at this year's E3, and there's just a lot of good games in the pipeline to look forward to over the next year or two, regardless if you have the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox, or even PlayStation. There's just a lot of good games in development, and that's why I can honestly say that I'm going to leave E3 very happy. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.